So today we're gonna learn about Ranavalona I. Now, before we begin, our study is gonna focus on the southern eastern hemisphere in Madagascar. Now, as we look at the timeline, our focus is gonna be split into two parts: the beginning and her reign. Now let's begin. Part 1: The beginnings, Ranavalona I. Now, her name wasn't actually Ranavalona I. Her name was actually Ramavo, and she was born to a commoner. And that commoner worked for the king, whose name was Merina. The uncle of the king wanted to kill him, and Ranavalona's father informed the king. To thank him, the king adopted Ranavalona and arranged her to marry the heir to the throne, Radama, making her the first wife of 12. Now, her path to becoming queen wasn't actually straight. When Radama died, he didn't have any heirs, which is surprising for someone who had 12 wives. But hey, I'm not judging. However, she did have an obstacle. You see, since no heirs were present, the succession went immediately to Radama's nephew, Prince Rakotove. Ranavala didn't want that. She wanted to be queen. So she did the most logical thing. She killed the prince, killed the mother, killed any of the opponents that she found worthy enough. She declared herself queen, got crowned queen, and hence her reign began. But before we move on to her reign, it is important to note that during this time, the French and the British were up in Madagascar's business, trying to convert the people to Christianity and set up a sphere of influence. Ranama was actually cooperating with them, set up a treaty with Britain for weapons in exchange for converts and trade. Part 2: Her reign. Now, politically, what she did, she advanced her army with weapons that she made from her own factories. We will discuss that later on. Also, she expanded her country and she governed that country with a more developed bureaucracy, where she had advisors, which were from her upper class aristocrats. Her armies increased in number, and she strengthened nationalism using her country's culture and using poems and letters. Socially, she improved the role of women, being the first female ruler since the reign of the Merina kingdom, and also being part of a patriarchal world since the Europeans were a strong force in the world. She elevated their status, and also she persecuted Christians and Europeans. Her environmental impact was the worst. During her reign, the population of Madagascar dropped over 50% in a span of less than 20 years. The people that she defeated turned into slaves, and that was equivalent to 1 million slaves, 1/3 of the population. 25 to 50% of soldiers died, and also the buffalo hunt. During the buffalo hunt, she and 50,000 people went to hunt buffaloes. But there are no roads, so she commanded her people to build roads as they walked, and every time she had to rest to build a town. During this ordeal, 10,000 people died. Took 4 months, no buffaloes were killed. Economically, she banned trade with foreign countries, and to make up for that, she brought back forced labor and slavery and industrialized her country with the help of her French slave. Now, her cultural impact was the biggest. She was strict on Christian missionaries. She forbid them to practice, forbid the religion, forbid to marriage. Also, she built the largest structure known as Manjaka Miadana. Even though she didn't like Christianity, she was okay with Europeans' technology and teachings, and welcomed that as long as it wasn't religious. And also the Tangena ordeal. This was a cultural political practice. You see, kings wanted to know if their subjects were loyal, and so what they did, they brought a flask of poison, 3 strips of chicken skin, and made the person eat it. If the person was innocent, they would throw up the 3 chicken skins. If they were not innocent, they would either die from the poison, or if they miraculously survived, get hanged. Now, I consider Ranavalona to be the biggest troll at Madagascar, and we will see why next. Evidence 1. When European forces burning in France found out that Ranavalona was now the queen of Madagascar, they decided to invade it. But they didn't expect was for her to retreat and actually trap them between her fortresses and destroy them. After that, she would gather up all the Europeans' dead bodies, decapitate them, and surround her fortresses with speared European heads. Evidence number 2. Her son, Ranaman II, and some Europeans wanted to kick her out of power, so they did a coup d'etat. Now, the funny part was that Ranavalona knew about this, and for months she led them on. She would hold meetings where she would describe in detail how to torture Europeans if they ever tried to kick her out of office, you could say. And then she would dismiss them all. She would send soldiers to European houses to just either fix the road or give a report. When she announced that she knew their plan, she put the Europeans in house arrest or on a little trip through her malaria-infested jungles where 50 of them died and only 2 survived. Now, this next section contains graphic information, and you have been warned. Now, some interesting facts about her. She was known as the Mad Queen, and let's see why. Her methods of execution included strangling, drowning, stoning, crucifixion, burning on the pier, tossing you from a cliff, tossing you from that same cliff, catching you, then being the biggest troll, cutting the rope, making you kiss her feet, which were coated in poison, tying you in a sack, flipping you upside down from a pole, then you died, chaining you to 4 people, refused food, and then you had to drag the dead bodies until all of them died. She peeled your skin while you were alive, crushed your testicles, sawed you in half vertically, your head first, and tied you to a wooden stake, put you in a pit, and boiled you alive. Now, there's something worse than that. There's a story, either fabricated by Europeans, and it begins with this. There were 4 people executed, one of them including a really, really pregnant lady. And the soldiers were trying to build a fire. Then it started to rain, and the fire kept going out and out and out. And then, once the fire was actually built, a triple rainbow appeared, and then the woman gave birth. People saw it as a sign saying they were innocent, that divine people were protecting them. And Ranavalona, being the biggest troll of them all, got the baby, drew in the fire, drew in the mother, drew in the 3 guys, and ended that. Now here have some bunnies to get rid of all that torture that she does. Okay, have this last one. Okay, we're good. Let's go on. Ranavalona, the first personal facts. Now here's a list of her family. I'll give you a moment so you can look at it. Maybe try to pronounce names. I know I can't. Now her love life wasn't all that great. Her first was Ranama the First, which we mentioned later, and didn't really start off good because he killed all her family because he kind of saw them as a threat. Her next was one of her advisors whose name was Andrea Miaja, but he was killed by her other advisors because he wanted to interact with the Europeans, set up treaties. Next one was Rainiero, who died. And then the last one was Andrea Nisa, who didn't die before her because she died first. And she had a lover who cheated on her, and he didn't want to do the chicken poison thing, so she speared him in the neck. Love this girl. Random info during 18th and 19th century, so Unit 4. And why is she important? Ranavalona is important because during her time period, Europe was a dominant power. And one of the strongest powers out there, France and Britain, went against Madagascar, tried to conquer Madagascar, and she held them back. Not only did she hold them back, but she maintained her country's culture, improved her country economically. Now, of course, it wasn't all peachy. She did have her bad times with the population going down more than 50%, her methods of torture. But that's the point. History is in black and white. There's no good, there's no bad. There's always two sides to a story. And Ranavalona is a perfect example of that. Depending on how you're reading it, how you're learning from it, either from a European standpoint or from a Madagascan standpoint, she was an influential, important person. And that is why we should learn about her.